Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the World News Program with me, Karim Fazakri, and up next are the headlines. Iran says no safe shipping through the Strait of Hormuz unless insecurity ends, and they're building an insurance system to manage it. And Pakistan's message is talk, or we're heading for all-out war. So much for the truce in Lebanon. Zionist raids pound the south the very day after a 45-day extension. Meanwhile, 2 days of Gaza fire bring martyrs and wounded, plus serious escalation in the West Bank. Niger officials visit Sonatrach. Algeria says the Niamey power plant is on track and calls the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline a model for continental integration across Africa. And later on in our news, Polisario calls for monitoring Moroccan occupation crimes and rejects any unilateral approach that stretches the conflict. And Angola reaffirms its long-standing principled position that they stand with the Sahrawi people. All this and more shortly. Hello again and welcome to the program. First off in our news, USM Algeria were crowned champions of the CAF Confederation Cup for the second time in their history after defeating Zamalek SC on penalties in the second leg final played in Cairo. The title marks USM Algiers' second Confederation Cup triumph following their first success in 2023, further confirming the club's strong and consistent presence on the African football stage. And on this occasion, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, officially congratulated USM Algiers following their historic CAF Confederation Cup victory. In a post on X, he described the win as a great historical honor for all of Algeria. He stated 1,000 congratulations to USM Algiers for winning the African Confederation Cup with merit at Cairo International Stadium. Moving on to other global developments now, Fars News Agency reported that Iran's Ministry of Economy was developing a plan to manage the Strait of Hormuz through insurance mechanism under normal conditions. The agency said the plan would allow Tehran to carry out intelligence monitoring and distinguish between ships from different countries. It added this would enable long-term management of the strait, citing damage it said was caused by vessels linked to what it described as enemies. Meanwhile, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian affirmed that navigation in the Strait of Hormuz will return to normal once the current security situation ends. Iranian media reported that Pezeshkian sent a message to the Pope stressing Iran's commitment to activating monitoring and surveillance operations to secure shipping through the strategic strait, while reaffirming Tehran's commitment to diplomacy and peaceful solutions.
The current situation in the Strait of Hormuz is the result of the illegal attacks carried out by the aggressors and the use of the territories and airspace of Gulf states to launch attacks against Iran, as well as the naval blockade imposed on Iran by the United States. It is only natural that once the current state of insecurity comes to an end, traffic through the Strait of Hormuz will return to normal. As part of effort to strengthen maritime security arrangement in this strategic waterway, Iran will implement professional and effective monitoring and oversight mechanisms in accordance with international law.
In a similar development, Iran warned that any new U.S. aggression would have consequences for countries backing the draft U.S. Security Council resolution, saying Washington was using that support to advance a unilateral plan on the Strait of Hormuz. Its UN mission said the U.S. was presenting a false image of broad backing for what it called illegal actions in the region, rejecting any cover for those facilitating or legitimizing an attack on Iran. Aga Shah Durrani, chairman of the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs in Pakistan's Senate, said diplomacy is the only option to prevent the Middle East from sliding into full-scale war. Speaking to our channel, he said Pakistan is working to bring the parties to the negotiating table to ease tensions and avoid clashes, warning that any war would lead to widespread destruction.
See, in these situations, the most important part is always to keep the diplomatic channels open. Because just imagine if there is no diplomatic channel, so which means that means that there's no other option except like a war. So Pakistan took this decision to be the intermediary and play the role of a responsible state. Pakistan is constantly pushing really hard to achieve a permanent solution and permanent peace in this region. And it's a great achievement on behalf of Pakistan to actually make both the parties sit together on one table and push them toward the points of convergence rather than pushing them toward the points of divergence.
For his part, Pakistani Interior Minister Mohsen Naqvi arrived in Tehran on Saturday for talks with Iranian officials, according to IRNA. Iranian Interior Minister Iskandar Momeni said Tehran and Islamabad agreed to facilitate border trade by implementing measures and streamlining procedures to speed up cross-border trade and border crossings. And in a different development, U.S. President Donald Trump said he was considering easing sanctions on Chinese companies buying Iranian oil. In a statement on Friday evening, he said a final decision would be announced in the coming days after review, citing political and economic considerations. In another development in the Middle East, Israeli occupation forces launched intensive air and artillery strikes on multiple towns and villages in southern Lebanon on Saturday. The Lebanese National News Agency reported that homes were demolished, alongside a series of airstrikes targeting dozens of towns and villages in the Nabatea and South Lebanon governorates. In Lebanon still, the government announced the extension of the ceasefire agreement for an additional 45 days starting May 29th. The Lebanese National News Agency, quoting the negotiating delegation, said talks held in the United States would allow Lebanon to begin a security track under Washington's auspices and facilitation. It added that the agreement also includes a formal political track aimed at strengthening Lebanon's participation in negotiations and increasing the chances of a lasting settlement. Elsewhere in the Middle East, the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza said hospitals received 13 martyrs and 57 wounded from Zionist fire over the past 48 hours. In a statement on Saturday, it said the toll since the ceasefire took effect last October has risen to at least 870 martyrs and 2,543 wounded.
We were at home around Maghrib prayer time, preparing to pray, when suddenly missiles began striking the building. What was inside that building? We do not know. What do we know is that there were children, women, and families inside. That is what there. So why did they bomb it? Why?
Backed by Zionist occupation forces, settlers ramped up their attacks, stealing livestock from Palestinian farmers in the occupied West Bank. It's part of a systematic ethnic cleansing war. They went after sheep and cows raised specifically for Eid sacrifice. More details with Karim Mustawi in this report.
A new attempt to tarnish preparations for Eid al-Adha in the occupied West Bank. The latest attack, carried out by Zionist settlers against Bedouin communities near the villages of Sinjal and Jijliya, north of Ramallah, has left a Palestinian teenager dead. Yusuf Ali Kaabna, he was deliberately killed by the occupation forces while trying to recover livestock stolen by the Zionist settlers.
The settlers have become increasingly aggressive, seizing livestock, cars, and tractors, demolishing and burning houses. We have reached a very dangerous stage, even going so far as to kill young people. Yesterday there was a martyr in the Algeria area. 4 people were wounded by rubber bullets and 1 by live ammunition. 3 young men from the Bedouin community were arrested at the scene.
Protected by Zionist soldiers who violently prevented the defenseless Palestinians from defending themselves, the settlers stole hundreds of sheep, a key source of income for the Bedouin community.
The army was directly protecting the settlers, with 1 military jeep in front of the flock of sheep and another behind. The settlers were guiding the flock, while local residents tried to go out to check on their sheep along the main road. The army and settlers opened fire on anything that moved nearby.
From isolated incident to planned terrorist attack, the perpetrators are settlers who found in the protection of the occupation forces an opportunity to escalate their brutal attacks against the defenseless Palestinians.
In a related story, London saw a huge pro-Palestinian march Saturday, the 78th anniversary of the Nakba. Central London turned into a high-security zone. The march started at Exhibition Road and headed toward Pall Mall. Meanwhile, supporters of far-right activist Tommy Robinson held their own rally as well. Police deployed around 4,000 officers, plus helicopters, drones, mounted units, dogs, and armed vehicles. Even facial recognition tech were implemented. To another development, this time in Africa. A delegation from Niger's Petroleum Ministry arrived Saturday in Algeria's Hassim Saoud, their second stop to learn from Algerian hydrocarbons expertise. The visit highlights strong Algeria-Niger cooperation and a shared goal to strengthen energy ties, serve mutual interests, and support regional sustainable development. More details with Zahra Farjani.
Algeria is once again reinforcing its position as a trusted energy partner and a strategic hub for countries seeking to secure supplies, exchange expertise, and develop skilled human resources. As part of this role, a high-level delegation of experts and engineers from Niger's Ministry of Petroleum visited Hassim Saoud in southern Algeria on the second leg of a working tour aimed at exploring Algeria's extensive experience in the hydrocarbon sector. The Nigerian delegation began its field visit at the Directorate of Laboratories and the Central Core Sample Bank, known as Carotech, where they received detailed technical briefings on rock sample analysis, reservoir studies, and methods used to improve production efficiency and optimize field operations. The delegation then visited the National Well Works Company and the National Well Services Company in Afor, where members were introduced to modern drilling rigs and advanced well drilling and maintenance technologies, in addition to the company's training and safety programs. The visit also included an on-site tour of the sophisticated equipment and technologies used in drilling operations. The mission forms part of Niger's efforts to modernize its hydrocarbon sector and benefit from Algeria's long-standing expertise in petroleum data management, digital infrastructure, and hydrocarbon quality control, while also promoting the exchange of technical know-how and best industry practices. The visit reflects the growing strength of Algerian-Nigerian relations and the shared commitment of both countries to deepen cooperation in the energy sector. The partnership is built on a common belief in the importance of capacity building, training, and knowledge sharing, not only to serve the economic interests of both nations, but also to support sustainable development and regional integration across the wider region. Beyond its commercial dimension, the partnership carries significant strategic importance. Strengthening the Algiers-Niamey axis is seen as a step toward greater regional integration and the creation of a stronger economic bloc capable of addressing the recurring security challenges facing the Sahel through a development-driven approach focused on stability and job creation. The growing cooperation between the two countries is also viewed as part of broader efforts to strengthen Africa's energy sovereignty by reducing reliance on foreign and Western companies and promoting stronger South-South partnerships based on equality, mutual interests, and respect for national sovereignty. Such cooperation would allow countries in the region to develop and manage their natural resources using African expertise and capabilities.
Still with energy news, Sanal Gas electricity production CEO Khaled Nouasri is on a working visit to Niger to assess progress on a power plant project in Niamey. Salagas said he inspected the site, where work is advancing steadily in line with the roadmap, reaffirming the company's commitment to deadlines and quality standards. He also met Niger's Energy Minister Hawa Amadou, with both sides stressing the project's importance in boosting electricity production and energy access. In energy still, Algeria said the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline represents a unique model of continental integration. At a UN Economic and Social Council meeting in Geneva, its mission highlighted Algeria's commitment to the project as key to sustainable development for transit countries. The delegation also reaffirmed Algeria's support for multilateral cooperation and inclusive development for future generations.
Algeria continues its approach within a regional and international framework through the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline Project, which is considered a unique model of regional integration and African partnership, aiming to contribute to African efforts to achieve sustainable local development for transit countries.
Former IAEA expert Yusri Abu Shadi said Algeria is qualified to play a leading African role in training and peaceful nuclear applications. Speaking to our channel, he said Algeria has strong scientific expertise within the IAEA and is among the leading Arab and African countries in the peaceful use of nuclear energy.
Algeria has developed excellent experts and specialists for a long time, and the proof is that if you look at the names of the Algerians working within the International Atomic Energy Agency, you will find prominent and highly qualified scientific figures.
Algeria's Saharan Brent crude topped OPEC oil prices in April 2026. According to OPEC's May monthly report, it reached $133.04 per barrel, the highest in the basket, marking an increase of $29.16. The price gap with Brent crude now stands at around $5 per barrel. In another development, the Caliph General of the Tijaniya Faida in the Senegal and President of the African Islamic Union, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Nias, described Algeria as a powerful school of humanity, knowledge, dignity, and nobility. Following his meeting with the President of the High Islamic Council of Algeria, Mabrouk Zaid Al-Khair, he praised the Algerian people's struggle and resistance against tyranny and colonialism.
نحن سعداء جدا بزيارة الجزائر.
We're very happy to visit Algeria. Anyone who knows Algeria knows a strong and resilient people who stood up to the oppression of a major world power with steadfastness and dignity until they drove out the occupier. Algeria has since become a model for all peoples seeking to free themselves from exploitation in their own countries. We commend the Islamic, cultural, religious, and human ties that connect Algeria with Africa and with countries around the world. Algeria truly represents a powerful school of humanity, knowledge, dignity, and human values, one whose lessons cannot be matched by any other institution in the world. This is a people who regard others everywhere as their brothers and love them as they love themselves. We're truly delighted to meet the Algerian people and experience firsthand their generosity, humanity, and nobility. No one needed to tell me this. I witnessed it myself through my own experiences.
نحن سعداء بهذه الزيارة المباركة.
We're pleased by this blessed visit that has brought to us this esteemed sheikh, who is considered one of the great figures not only in Senegal, but across all of Africa. He is the General Caliph of the Tijaniya Faida and has a significant influence that we witness, hear about, and receive news of from every corner. We hope he and his accompanying delegation enjoy a pleasant stay, and that this visit marks the beginning of stronger ties between the High Islamic Council Senegal and the Tijaniya Faida in Senegal. His father was an honorary member of our High Islamic Council in Algeria during the 1960s. We hope this relationship will grow stronger, deeper, and more distinguished, and that God will grant prosperity and unity to the Islamic nation across the world, especially in Africa.
Moving on to another development in Africa still, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic renewed its call on the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights to document violations in Western Sahara under Moroccan occupation. At the 87th session in the Gambia, Foreign Minister Mohamed Yeslam Baise said the political process does not exempt the Commission from visiting the occupied territories, reaffirming the right to self-determination and Africa's anti-colonial stance.
The Sahrawi Republic renews its call to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to continue to fulfill its legal and moral responsibility towards the human rights situation in Western Sahara, including completing the visit to the territories under Moroccan occupation, given that the protection of human rights in Africa cannot be comprehensive and credible unless it also includes peoples under occupation.
The Polisario Front also called for strict application of the African Charter and rejected any unilateral solutions that prolong the conflict. It also voiced concern over continued civilian killings by occupying forces along the military separation wall. Let's take a listen.
إن الجمهورية الصحراوية تؤكد أمام لجنتكم الموقرة.
The Sahrawi Republic affirms before your esteemed committee that the denial of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination is not merely a political issue or a territorial dispute, but a fundamental violation of one of the basic rights guaranteed under Article 20 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which clearly stipulates the right of all peoples to exist and to freely determine their own destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, numerous international reports and mechanisms have concluded that the continued occupation and the denial of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination is the root cause of all the civil, political, economic, social, cultural, and even environmental violations suffered by the Sahrawi people within the occupied territories.
In a related story, Angola's ambassador to Germany, Maria Isabel de Reisinde, reaffirmed her country's support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination during talks with the Polisario Front's representative in Germany. She said Angola's position stems from its liberation history and confirmed continued support in bilateral and multilateral forums linking Western Sahara's resolution to African unity and integration. Statements by former French ambassador to Morocco, Christophe Lecourtier, on France's position on Western Sahara resurfaced after circulating widely on social media. The remarks confirm Paris' direct and active role in supporting Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara and promoting the autonomy plan used in its position at the UN Security Council. He stated that France was the main promoter of the Moroccan initiative and used its diplomatic weight and veto power to provide political cover. He also said French forces carried out airstrikes against Polisario Front convoys in the 1970s.
France stood by Morocco from the very beginning of the Western Sahara conflict without hesitation. At the time, French forces engaged groups identified as the Polisario Front, and their convoys were destroyed by the French Jaguar aircraft. At the United Nations, during what is often described as a glorious period, but one in which Morocco was largely isolated, France consistently supported Rabat. Between 1975 and 1978, in a context still shaped by strong post-war ideological currents and debates over decolonization, France used its position as a permanent member of the Security Council to back Morocco. Later in 2007, France was involved in shaping the Moroccan autonomy plan, and shortly after it was presented by the Moroccan king, French authorities were among the first to consider it a viable and positive solution.
And finally, it's time to catch up on other international news stories in the News in Brief with Sofian Kanturi this time.
Authorities in Nigeria and the United States announced on Saturday the killing of a senior leader of the so-called Islamic State group during a joint military operation carried out in Nigeria. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu confirmed in a statement that Abu Bilal al-Manuki, described as one of the world's most active terrorist figures, was killed during a coordinated operation conducted by Nigerian armed forces in cooperation with U.S. forces. The Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention has announced a renewed outbreak of the Ebola virus in Ituri, in Northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo. In a statement issued on Friday, The continent's top public health body reported nearly 256 suspected infections, including 65 deaths, most of them recorded in Ituri, which borders Uganda and South Sudan. Russian authorities announced on Saturday that one person was killed in a Ukrainian attack targeting the border region of Belgorod Oblast. Local officials confirmed that the strike targeted a vehicle in the town of Krasnaya Yaruga, resulting in the death of a civilian. At least 8 people were killed after a freight train collided with a bus in Bangkok. The crash occurred at around 3:40 p.m. at a railway crossing in the Ratchathini district when the train struck the bus, triggering a fire and explosion. The Austrian capital Vienna is set to host the grand final of the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday, amid efforts by organizers to shield Europe's largest music event from mounting controversy surrounding the participation of the Zionist occupation.
Well, that's the end of our news program for tonight. To catch up on any punch you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. Until next time, have a good one.